A new report warns schools are now being taken over by organisations teaching controversial anti-racism ideologies. In some classrooms, students are taking part in tests to check their unconscious bias by taking online surveys to see if they understand the term white privilege and what they could do if a teacher mispronounces the name of a Middle Eastern student. This sounds to me like critical race theory. And joining us now, we have Dr. Alka Sehgal Cuthbert, the director of Don't Divide Us. Alka, it's been far too long. Thank you for coming on. Can you run us down what is going on? How is unconscious bias still in the classroom?
Good evening, Calvin. Thank you for inviting me on. It hasn't gone away from the classroom. It morphed since 2020 through the percolation into schools through these unaccountable organisations, most of whom are companies. And I wouldn't say it's a takeover as much as a open invitation, as they're being invited into schools by heads, by EDI, that's Equity, Diversity and Inclusion teams, to address what seems to be a real loss of confidence on their part in the intrinsic value of education itself. Because if they were educating properly and they were confident about what they were doing, they would not need to pay lots of money to bring in so-called experts on racism, experts who have, as far as we can see, very few of them have any substantial qualifications in education in the scholarly sense of the word, or in child development, in the history of schooling, for example, epistemology, philosophy of education. None of that. What you do get is a lot of credentialized academics in leadership for learning, or, decoloniality. Several of them are linked to Leeds Beckett University's Centre for Education and Decoloniality. And they are being invited into schools in a way to address what people who perhaps are new to it or who haven't thought it through very deeply think that they're doing the right thing by being anti-racist. But what they don't realise is that when they think of anti-racism, they're thinking of something that is a very different kettle of fish to the new critical race theory inflected anti-racism, even if they don't call it that.
Racist, rather than this whole, you're either racist or anti-racist. I'm fortunate enough to visit a lot of schools, Alka, and quite often I find that these head teachers aren't trying to be woke, they're not trying to push an ideology, they just feel like they have to address this issue in some way, which is why I quite often push them in your direction and say, look at Don't Divide Us. But can you recommend something? Can you tell these head teachers and parents how they can address the issue of race without subscribing to the divisive ideology of critical race theory?
I think the first thing I would advise any head teacher or senior leadership team who's feeling under pressure is to take a deep breath and think calmly and rationally and think, if you're going to bring in one of these organisations, what are you saying? What problem is implied in that intervention? And I would put it to them that the problem is that there is something so deeply and horribly racist about their school that they need to bring in these new experts. And they have to ask themselves, is that true? And in the majority of cases, it is not true. Every head I've spoken to, if I ask them, what is the problem of racism in your school? They say, oh, no, we haven't got one. But, we want to address the disparities. Well, schools are not there to address the disparities. Schools are there to teach the best knowledge that we have to all children in the best way possible. Simple as that. That is a really worthwhile, valuable, deeply ethical thing to do because it's connected with the idea of truth. It's connected with the idea of tolerance, in being able to listen to views you disagree with, in being able to infer and see the implications of a train of thinking in a way that's subjective, in a way that isn't attached deeply to your own personality. Because if you think ideas are the person, then you can never have a reasonable discussion. You'll be too scared of offending or being offended, really. And then if they decide there's no problem there, then I would think, seriously, what is the problem then? And if it's underachievement in their particular school, then why are those particular students underachieving and what do they need? It will lead them in a different direction than to the third-party organisations that we look at in our report.
Here. I think we could do with fewer third-party resources and groups in our schools, and you're always very wise on this. Thank you. That was Dr. Alka Sehgal Cuthbert. Please
Thank
do
you.
look up Don't Divide Us for more information on this.